Hey guys, it's Corey from Redefining Strength, and today I wanted to go over the bent over row and some common mistakes that I see when doing this exercise. A lot of these postural distortions happen because we sit hunched over our computer all day. So we can't properly engage our back. We don't have the proper mobility to do the movement correctly. So we often go through the motions thinking we're replicating form, but we're not recruiting the right muscles. So I wanted to go over some common mistakes and some ways to correct them. Mistake number one is that I see people not actually rowing with their back. When they perform either a dumbbell row or a barbell row, what you'll often see happening is they'll end up doing a bicep curl. They'll curl the weight up towards their shoulder. When you actually do the row, you don't want to think about bending and extending at the elbow. You want to think about pulling the weight back towards your chest. You're actually driving the elbow back towards the ceiling behind you and down towards your hips. So when you do a dumbbell row, instead of curling up, you want to think about pulling up towards your chest, and you even want to hit right about your chest height with the top of the dumbbell, driving the elbow back. You should actually feel your shoulder blade move as you do this. If you do it with the barbell, and you can use a variety of grips depending on how much you want to target specific muscles, you can actually think about hinging over, and then you're driving the elbows back as you row up. When you drive the elbows back, what that can do is make sure that you're actually pulling with your back versus doing the bicep curl. So first mistake is that we turn it into an arm exercise. So if you've ever rowed and you only feel your arms, that's why you actually want to pull with your back. Second mistake, which is also connected to this, is we shrug. So instead of driving the elbow down towards our hip, what we end up doing is actually hunching over, rounding forward to try and get the weight up higher, and shrugging our shoulders. This does not allow us to, again, pull with our back correctly. So when you do that row, whether with the barbell or with the dumbbell, you want to think about driving the elbow down and back to pull. Think about keeping the chest pressed out nice and wide, and then coming back down. If you do it two, that's fine too. Think about wide shoulders when you row, and don't try and get it past your body, because all that does is make you shrug and round forward. So mistake number two is shrugging. Think about, again, driving that elbow down towards that hip as you row up. Mistake number three is actually rounding when you row. So again, because we sit hunched over all day, we'll tend to sort of shrug, we'll tend to round forward. When you set up, especially if you're new to rowing, think about keeping a neutral spine, extending that spine, not arching your lower back as you do it, but extending your spine, and then think about pressing your chest out as you pull. So you actually want the pull to be like this, where you're widening out your chest more. If you have to round, try and get up higher, the weight is probably too heavy to start. So when you do the barbell row, think about rowing it down right at the bottom of your chest, even towards the bottom of your rib cage, and press the chest out more, okay? So you're pulling the barbell up, you're pressing and extending, you're thinking about your shoulder blades coming together. So mistake number three is rounding forward as you row. When that happens, your shoulder blades aren't moving. So think about pulling those shoulder blades together as you do it. The next mistake is breaking your wrist. So we'll try and use a heavier weight, and what else will happen to also compensate for people not pulling with their back is they'll sort of break their wrist in, right? They'll break their wrist, they'll bend their wrist to do those sorts of things instead of actually pulling with their back. So if the weight is too heavy and you're tending to do something like this to try and get it up higher, regress, okay? Reduce the weight, start with a single arm variation over even the barbell, but don't break those wrists just to try and pull it up higher, because what we end up doing then is shrugging, using our shoulders, using our arms, not actually pulling with our back. It really all goes back to remembering to pull with your back, thinking about that wide posture. The last mistake that I want to go over is bouncing, okay? Some amount of movement when we're doing the bent over rows to get up a heavier weight is acceptable. It allows us to use our back and sort of overcome any weakness that we might have with our arms. However, when you see people go into the row, you'll see them do like one of these guys, right, to get the weight up, to try and go heavier than they can actually control. And all that does is turn into improper recruitment patterns, so you're using the wrong muscles. So really think about staying hinged over, engaging everything, even creating a little tension through your upper back before you even row, and then driving the elbows down and back, okay? If you do that, you'll actually be able to pull with your back. Again, especially on that last rep, if you get a little momentum, that's okay, but don't turn it into a bounce. You're pulling with your back. As I said, all of it relates back to extending that spine, pulling with that back, widening out the chest. So mistake number one is not rowing with your back, turning it into a bicep exercise. Mistake number two is shrugging, okay? So you're pulling up like this. All that does is serve to already piss off your neck and shoulder, which might already be pissed off from your daily posture. Mistake number three is rounding, okay? So rounding as you row and not actually pulling with your back. Even if it takes some different scapular mobility work before you row, make sure you're doing it so you're actually thinking about your shoulder blades drawing together. You're thinking about a wide chest, okay? Don't break your wrist, just use a heavier weight, because then you're not actually using your back again. Again, you want to always focus on using that back. And then the last thing is don't bounce. Don't have ego in the weights. Regress, reduce the weight as needed so you can really isolate and activate. If you want to strengthen your back, the best bet is to make sure that you're in control of that movement so you can actually use the muscles of your back and not just use your arms, not just end up with neck or shoulder pain. If you have any questions about the bent over row, whether with dumbbells or with the barbell, don't hesitate to comment below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and like the video if you did like it.